minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
We
sure.
are live. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Live Real Talk with Nina. Today's guest is Lisa Dad with Soul Sales. And we're going to be talking about sales from a very, very different perspective and from a different approach than what you hear normally. So I am actually super excited to have Lisa on. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Nina. Great to be here.
Absolutely. You're coming in from Canada. Where in Canada are you?
I'm in Ontario, Canada, right across from the Michigan border and the U.S.
Okay,
border.
very good. Is it nice and cold there
It's
too?
crisp. We're like minus 20 with the wind chill. So it's, I got the turtleneck on this morning,
Yep. I had to. I'd switched since I'm in Switzerland and it was minus 22 as well. And we're talking centigrade here, guys, not
Yeah,
Fahrenheit. So,
yeah.
although at some point I think it doesn't really matter anymore. It's just,
It doesn't, but
yep,
for those out there, it's like around 2 or 3 degrees
yep.
Fahrenheit.
It's like, I was talking to the young woman I work with in the Philippines, and she said, "Oh, it's like living in your freezer." I'm like, "Yeah, something like that." I thought that was super cute. And yeah. Anyway, so why don't you, Lisa, introduce yourself as to what your background is and what is soul sales, sort of in a
Mm.
nutshell, and then
In a
we'll dig
nutshell.
into
All
it.
right. Let's talk about how I went from one extreme to the other. I grew up in corporate healthcare, learning sales and marketing and business planning and strategy and all of those things. Decided to be a bit of a corporate dropout just shy of a decade ago and ran to find some more purpose and passion and joy in my life. Ended up in a transformational business space, and since then have come back to recognize that, people will say your business doesn't grow unless you do. And so I love the intersection
Mhm.
between personal growth and business, and really believe that the more we know about ourselves, the more we grow. So that's what I do with people. People mostly like my sales because I have a completely different way I teach people how to do sales. And I love to teach sort of non-sales people how to sell.
Yep. And that's how I actually paid attention to you. We were in a networking group together. And when you introduced yourself, my ears just like perked straight up into the ceiling. I'm like, I want to talk to that gal.
Yeah.
It sounds really, really interesting. So, and yes, we have a viewer. Hey, Dan. So good to see you, or not see you, but at least see your post and or your comment. And yes, it is must see programming. I do agree with you. And so that is a super short nutshell. And in a way, I mean, I kind of see myself recreated in that. I mean, I went from doing super corporate video with all the bells and whistles and every conceivable budget that you could even think of having, and spending ridiculous amounts on, graphics and voiceovers and editing and shooting and all that, to, now showing people how to do their own video marketing such that they can, be heard and seen on social media and have a chance to stand out. So, similar idea, totally different approach. So tell me a little bit about where did I mean? I'm sure the way you tell it, it's a straight line, but I'm
Mm.
sure there was like it was like more probably like something like that, right?
It was,
um,
yeah, it was
let's talk
not a
about that
straight
for a
line.
hot second. I'd
Yeah.
love to hear a little bit about what that search was like, how that finding your program, right? You've
Mhm.
actually this
Yeah.
is a diagnostic tool or
Yeah.
that you created, right?
Well, my mentor and business partner in the Netherlands developed the soul language tool that I use.
Mm-hmm.
Together, we've created the application of it towards sales.
Yeah.
So, soul language is much broader than for selling. It's really talking about individuals' core energy and who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just applying it. I'm applying it to a place where I think people really need um, help, support, training.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not a windy path to find her. If you had told me 10 years ago, you're going to be in the Netherlands meeting a woman and you'll be staying at her house and she'll be training you on this new tool and you're going to be doing this work with business owners, I'd have been like, I definitely would have been like, how is that going to happen? I couldn't
Mhm.
probably have created that path if I had wanted to.
Yep.
So I don't even know how far back we'll go, but I think it's fair enough to say that when I decided to leave corporate, I decided to open up my sense of possible. As I
Mhm.
think I've always been looking at possibility through the lens of the corporation I worked for. I worked for the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. There was a bound of opportunities. But for the longest time, I thought that's all I could do. It's like, oh, I could do this, I could do this. And it wasn't until I left corporate that I was like, wait a second, someone
Mhm.
gets paid to do this, and someone gets to do that, and someone's having
Mhm.
super fun over here, and they're getting paid. And so um, I think it was just like that, literally, like take off the
Yep.
blinders and recognize, what if I just started to follow what my curiosity and my
Mhm.
joy and fun? And that's really where
Mhm.
the path started.
Yeah. And I think what you just said rings so true, right? It's like, oh, somebody's having fun over there and they're actually being paid for it, right?
Right.
And I always feel that way about what I do, but for the sales element, right? And
Mm,
to me, the sales element has always been sort of the non-joyful part, the must-do part, the sort of the part that gets my stomach in a knot.
yeah.
Hate getting on those sales calls. The funny thing is, once I'm on the call with a person, I'm having a conversation. I don't hate that at all. I love
Yeah.
finding out about people.
Yeah.
And but then comes, sort of, oh, now I should probably make an offer. I should probably talk about money. I should
Mhm.
probably put a fake deadline on it.
There's a lot of shoulds in that, Nina.
Yeah,
There's so many
I
shoulds
know.
in there. And so, of course,
So
stop it. We got
so
to
where
get
are you
people.
different? Right. Where do you come in a scenario like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I say to people, stop shooting on yourself. But
Yeah.
that's pretty common, right? Is that people have this moment, I think, in a call. I don't think anybody's trying to be inauthentic, but there's a moment where it's like, okay, well, how do I turn this into a sale, or what do I say next? And so I think that's common. The very thing you said at the beginning of saying, I love to have conversations with people, but the idea of sales puts a knot in my stomach.
Yep.
That's how I ended up back in sales. So when I left corporate, I kind of ran away from marketing and sales to
Mhm.
explore new things. Didn't think that was where my sweet spot was. And I had so many business owner friends and colleagues and connections that were saying the same thing that you were. And one day I just said, do you want me to just teach you how to do sales where it could be more fun? And they're like,
Mhm.
yes. And so I just started doing it for free for my business owner friends. And then they kept
Yep.
saying, Lisa, you got to teach this. And I'm like, I
Yep.
don't know. Like, and so it's like, oh, right. Okay. So here's the entry point of growing inside your comfort zone. Is like, I was
Mhm.
super comfortable with teaching people a different way to do sales, and yet I was kind of ignoring it as an opportunity. And
Yep.
so the first thing I started to say to people was this is my belief. You don't teach someone how to be a salesperson. There are some energies in soul language that naturally resonate with being a salesperson, but I don't teach people how to be a salesperson. I teach people how to understand who they naturally are and what their natural approach is. And what I train them on is how to translate that during a sales situation.
Mhm.
So I start with the person's natural way to be, which is actually easier for me as a trainer. It's like, you're
Of
already
course.
brilliant in this. And now
Mhm.
I'm just going to show you how to do that in sales.
Wow. Okay. And that also takes the woo out of it, because when you hear like, oh, soul language, oh, staying within your comfort zone, you're like, oh, is this going to be like a whole thing of woo woo? But it really isn't. I mean, this is uh, there's a science behind this, right?
Yeah.
Or a
I think
um
well, first of all, I believe there's most science around a lot of woo woo. It's just we don't know it, and so woo woo just
yep,
is like the mystery of not understanding it.
yep.
A
Very
lot,
true.
but I do love in business. I do love to bring that language back to something people can receive. And
Yep.
often I'll say, like, even I don't give the power to the tool. The tool is very powerful. However, the tool allows me to activate what's true in someone. So really,
Mhm.
I'm using a language, and I know I've got my clients when all of a sudden they go, oh, wow, that feels really good. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm saying we can grow inside our comfort zone, because we start to hit that part of someone that goes, oh, I didn't know I could do that. I
Yep.
didn't realize that that was the piece that I was missing. It's
Mhm.
in me already. I'm like,
Yep.
exactly. So how do
Wow.
we find that with people? How do we find that for people? Give them a radical awareness of it. And that's the starting place, really.
Yeah. So it's really not having to go out there and put yourself out and overcome and get out of your comfort zone and all that kind of stuff. It's really taking what you already have and using it to your best advantage.
Yeah, and that's the starting place. So yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes, yes. And when I always talk about radical self-awareness, it requires a willingness to know yourself to an even deeper level.
Mhm.
So some people can call that woo-woo, but what I'm talking about is like, we're going to talk about soul language and speaking to someone in a sales conversation, soul to soul. You need to know who you are. And do you know that in such a depth, and can you get comfortable with that so that when you show up, it just naturally feels really good for the other person as well?
Mhm. Mhm. And that doesn't mean that you need to have matching soul languages, right?
No, not at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to. But what you need to have is a desire for even the other person to feel good in the conversation. And I
Yeah.
think most of us do. I think that's why the knot in our stomach. It's like, if I got on a sales call and if I don't do it right, or if I don't do it naturally, I'm going to feel weird and awkward, but I also don't want this other person
Mhm.
feeling manipulated or feeling
Yes.
pressured or feeling whatever. And so
Mhm.
the knot in the stomach is kind of a note to ourselves to say, oh, I don't want to manipulate that other person. So already you're probably further ahead than you think you are, because it's like the fact that that bothers you already means that you won't intentionally go there, right?
Yeah, yeah. I just had this, it's like, when you go like, oh, I have these sales goals, and I always find the sales goals to be so random,
Mm.
and because they're not based in any, I don't want to say they're not based in any reality. I mean, I know that I'm not going to sign, 100 people a month, but I know that I could very well be signing maybe 6 people a month.
Yeah.
But so there is some reality to it. But then I find like, I once had somebody give me some sales goals, and then I found myself on sales calls, just just thinking of the number that
Oh,
I
the
had
number.
had to meet,
Yeah.
and it screwed me up completely. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
not doing that anymore,
Yeah.
And I also, the when you hear the things like, oh, this is a cheap program, or this is an easy program to sell, you should be able to sell that in one conversation.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, some people need 2 or 3 conversations. Yes, it might not be worth it sometimes to spend 3 hours with someone on a thing that is only a 250 thing. But on the other hand, once you got a person in your ecosystem and they're really comfortable with you, and then they experience the value you bring, you don't know what else they're going to take
Yeah.
and buy from you, right? So,
Well, and I love to talk to, when I work with my clients, we work on what is
mm,
it that you sell? And often they'll come back, oh, I sell a course, or I sell a book, or I
mhm,
sell a training. And I say, that's not what you
no,
sell.
no,
I mean,
that's not
no
what
one,
I
and I
yeah.
always give them this example of, no one buys a book. Now it
Mhm.
looks like they buy a book, but the book is just the package.
Yeah.
What are they buying? They're buying the information. Or if I'm going to
Mhm.
the beach for a week, I buy entertainment. I buy
Mm.
a fun little romance novel that it can turn my brain off and just have fun with it. Right. So
Yeah.
it's like, what are they actually buying? And when we get
Mhm.
really focused on and really grounded in what it is that we really are selling to people, and then how we deliver that. And to your point of, do we want to spend hours and hours on sales calls to, have a $200 sale? But when you can focus on the mission that you're working towards and say,
Mhm.
I'm really selling the idea of, I don't know, if someone's got the vision that no child goes hungry, then they
Mhm.
know, and their part of the mission is to lobby governments to, put funding into programs. It's like, what are they selling at the end of the day? Right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
getting really clear on that. And I think, you brought up a good point. It's, we can have sales targets and goals to create the business plan, but
Mhm.
that just doesn't get to be the lens with which we operate on a daily basis. And every sales conversation, that's not the first lens we're looking through.
No, and it never, and I think if it is, it shows, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is, the reason why, again, we go back to that knot in the stomach, is that if you're having a great conversation, then they have that moment where this little out of body goes, you haven't sold anybody yet today, and your numbers say you're short. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like,
Mhm.
okay. I mean, the person feels your energy go
Mhm.
away. So
Yeah.
you want to talk about woo or not? We've all been on calls when we know the person stopped listening to us. Right. I'll
Yeah.
say that to my mom sometimes. Mom, are you watching TV? I mean, we can
Yes.
feel when
We
their
can feel it.
energy,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can feel it, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And that's the training I love to do, is that sales is a conversation, not a presentation. And we know when people go into presentation mode.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There's this there's this sort of subconscious shift that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how does that work with working with the objections? So
Hmm.
I'd love to do your program, but I'm not ready yet. Or I'd
Yeah.
love to do your program, but it's a little out of my price range.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Yeah. When you're on a sales call, you mean, and someone gives you an objection?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Within your system.
Yeah. So for me, first of all, I teach using their archetypes, soul language.
Mhm.
There's 7 different archetypes. And based on the person's energy and based on your energy, we all respond to, we, when we different aspects. And one of the aspects is adaptation. So how
Mhm.
we respond to something. And also we have different mindsets. So how we view the lens on what's being offered to us. And so
Mhm.
in my training, I talk a little bit about the way objections show up depending on someone's different energy. So for example, like a warrior energy, they have a very cynical mindset. So sometimes when they're asking questions, they're like poking holes in your program, and we can respond really defensively to feel
Mhm.
like we need to fill that in. But when we can recognize, oh, this person is just really trying to find the heart of what it is that you're offering, we can approach it differently. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be from a defensive
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
right? We go, oh, okay, this person needs to understand that. And so as an example, when I'm teaching someone how to deal with objections that come up for them, usually there's a clarification. So my biggest thing is, if someone gives you time or money, I believe time and money are the 2 biggest smoke screens.
Yep.
So it's not that it doesn't feel true for somebody, but I always throw the end of the question on. If someone says to you, I don't have time for this, they're basically saying, what you're offering is not important enough for me to spend my time on.
Yep.
And if they say, I don't have the money for it, what you're offering is not important enough for me to spend my money on it. And if you can put
Mhm.
it through, and it's not to say it's not real. Some people really, the reality of the money may be
Mhm.
there.
Yep.
However, if you've really sold someone, if you've created buy-in, like if someone really wants to do their soul language and understand soul sales,
Mhm.
if they're really bought on it, but don't have the money, it sounds like, I got to get the money for this. I got to
Yep.
figure it out.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that will sell into that and say, oh, we'll use it on your credit card. And you get a person, I don't believe in putting someone in debt over it.
Mhm. Yep.
But we have to recognize first, did you sell them on it? They love it so much that they're
Mhm.
willing to find some solutions, or they're willing to go out and earn the money and then come back to you. To
Mhm.
me, that's still a sale.
Yep.
So
Interesting.
when we're more worried about, do we really have the buy-in from this person, and have we helped them align what they desire with what we can offer? To
Yep.
me, it's really about alignment.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sometimes in a sales call, what you need to do is help someone understand the alignment. It's not about manipulating them, but sometimes they're just missing a piece of the
Yep.
clarity for it to
Yep.
go, oh, wait.
Mhm. Yeah, so it really, what I'm hearing is the onus, if that's the right word you want to use, the job is on me or the salesperson to make sure that the whatever it is that we are offering is super clear and super straight to the person who is potentially buying from you, right? So,
Well, let's tease this out a bit, because
yeah.
yes, but I think what a lot of times people will lead them into that presentation mode again. So often,
Mhm.
especially when we feel awkward and confused and stressed,
Mhm.
I just got to tell them more. I got to give them more details. I got to tell them everything about this.
Yeah, but
But
then
what
you're
we
selling the boat, not the goal, right? Or the
Right. But some people will so even if you've learned to maybe sell, so even people that are a little bit more knowledgeable in sales and they've learned to sell the benefits and not the
Mhm.
features, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's basic sales. Everyone, you don't need soul sales for that. It's like sell benefits, not features.
Yeah.
20 or 30 years ago, I learned that part of it.
Yeah.
Um, if you're really in a good conversation with someone, you said something to me this morning. You said, I didn't want to ask you too many questions before we did this because I wanted it to be natural and as
Yeah.
a surprise. And what I hear from that is you had innate curiosity.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when I can get people to go into a sales call with innate curiosity, if you're if you really want to understand who that person is in front of you and what they need, then you look at what all the things you could offer them and the value of what you're offering, and you actually scan it and go, this piece matches with what they're really talking about. And so even though my favorite thing to sell, or the thing that most of my clients tell me is the biggest benefit of what I offer, may not be why this person really wants what I offer. It may be a tiny little sub point that I wouldn't even normally bring up. But if this person in front of me is saying something that triggers that, and I go, oh, that's what's most important to them. So none of the rest of it matters at this point. It's like, is there a connection with what's most important to them?
And that is, active listening and not trying to just blah out what you have to offer and how it works and all that. Yeah.
And then what we do is we layer on the soul language piece. So let's bring the soul language piece back in, just so people can understand, okay, well, what is that? And some people will find that a woo-woo. So if the word soul scares you, this probably isn't the tool for you. We're not going to sell you on that. I'm not even going to try. But the soul language piece is this: each of us has a different core energy and natural way of being. And so your life speaks to you all along, long before you see the report that comes out from soul language. Your life has been whispering to you about how you naturally approach things.
Yeah.
So when you're not worried about making a sale, how you naturally approach learning, how you naturally approach conversations, how you naturally approach trying a new task you've never done. There's themes in there specific to your core way of being. And that's the approach we start to use.
Okay.
So again, someone who has a lot of artist energy, the approach of the artist is very, very different than, say, the approach of the sage.
Okay.
So that's where we start to go, okay, you don't have to all of a sudden look at me. I talk with my hands. I'm kind of, loud and right. You don't have to sell like me. In fact, you shouldn't if that's not your energy.
Yeah. Interesting. What you're bringing up is so interesting because, I have, my coach always says, like, you're bringing your clients from their island of stuck to the island of success. And she always says, don't sell the ship that gets them there, sell the island of success. And I actually have a little drawing right here. And I'm the queen of selling the ship. I will tell you pictures until they come back out of your ears and all that. And I always have to remember it's about the benefits, But for me, it's funny. That's just how I am also wired. Like if I were to buy something, you can tell me all the benefits in the world. I'm going to be yeah.
What are the
But
details?
what I really want to know is how much time I'm going to spend on it, how often, what's the exact time on what day, and the funny thing is, somebody actually did that to me the other day on the sales call. She wanted to know all the dates and all the times and how long it would take and how much the homework was going to be. And I was so annoyed by her. And then afterwards I was like, shit, that was me. Yeah, I was like, I was like, oh my God, I got some of my own medicine here. But it's funny how we sort of are sometimes stuck in these just roles we've been playing or just, again, looking at things from our own myopic view. And I think that's also why the word curiosity is so important, is to really be willing to go into the conversation and sit with it and listen and be curious about what the other person wants, think they need and wants to hear, right? Which is what you said, like there might be all these outcomes that you think are the greatest benefits ever, and this person might just be looking for something totally random off center, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. I had a colleague once, and she was selling a retreat at a land that she owns out in the Adirondacks. It's a beautiful property out in the middle of nowhere.
I'm in.
And so you're already in. Okay.
I'm
perfect.
already in.
You just fed into this you fed into this example perfectly, Nina. We did not even set this up. I love it. So he was running a retreat at the time with other entrepreneurs and business owners and bringing them together. And she was going on and on about the land and how you can be off grid and you're going to be in the woods and in nature and it's going to be so beautiful. And this group was going to get together and do everything. And I'm listening to her. And of course, because she's a colleague and a friend, and of course I can help her with the sales piece. I was saying, Christine, I said, you realize I live in the woods. I'm not there right now, but at the time I was in my country property. I live on a lake surrounded by woods, and I'm surrounded by exactly what she was talking about all the time. Yet she was going on about that part of it. And I stopped her and I said, because I was also helping her out. I said, you know what is the most interesting part to me right now? I'm here doing my business alone. And you're talking about bringing a group together to work together who have that was more interesting to me, is the community and the masterminding that was going to go on with the group. And so I said, you can stop right now. I mean, she was almost, and this is one of the energy types too, they oversell. They keep talking, and it's like, if you spoke less, you would actually sell more. But she was also just missing that key point. She wasn't really realizing, who am I talking to? Just because the last 5 people were like you, Nina, out in the middle of nowhere, off grid, and they're like, I'm in, I don't care what you're doing, right? I live practically in that same environment.
So that was not the draw for you at all, right?
Why would I pay someone else to go sit in the woods when that's where I live, right? So, but it sounds kind of obvious, right? People out there probably going, okay, well, that would be obvious. But we get into that pattern, especially if you're doing a lot of sales calls.
Yeah.
And you're impatient like me. You might skip some of the, you go into assumptions. Everybody tells me the best thing about this program is this piece. And so they go sell it.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's like, you've lost the conversation piece of it. And then you've not even soul to soul. So that's when you can recognize, what is this, can I speak to you soul to soul? And do I know what my skill set is in helping you with understanding what your needs and desires and wants are? So yeah, that's where the juicy part is really recognizing, when I go with people's soul language and say, okay, well, you have someone who has a natural ability to lead, for example. We've got one of the archetypes. It's the dominant energy of the king energy, which is leading. And so they get to bring that leadership to the sales call.
Yeah.
But someone who's like a scholar, scholars have this brilliant way of seeing details and observing things that no one else does. They just pick up on details. It's like they're little sponges to absorb knowledge and information. And that's a benefit. So if someone has a lot of scholar energy, they get to bring that observation to the call. Say, I'm noticing this and right? Like they can use that. Because it's just already their comfort zone. We started out talking about, how do you grow inside your comfort zone, is know what it is.
Well, yeah, you need to know what your comfort zone is. Yes. And we all know it, I think, innately, but maybe it needs to be verbalized and maybe discovered even.
Well, this is this radical self-awareness piece. Are you willing to go deeper than that? Because you might know some of the surface piece of it. It's like, people always tell me I'm a good leader. I know that. Okay, great. Can we peel that down and say, what does that look like? What does it feel like? How does it show up? How can you step into that even more? In the innate feeling of it, what you're talking about is, when we start to do that, that's where it feels good and juicy and comfortable. It's like, if an athlete ever explains being in the zone. Yeah. It's like that. Talk about woo-woo. That really is a kind of a woo-woo concept. Like, I don't know, I was just in the zone. They just hit that spot. And have you ever heard anyone describe that as uncomfortable? Man, it was so uncomfortable being in the zone. Nobody says that. But it's like, when I can get in the zone, like, what is possible from that place?
Oh yeah. I mean, I know the zone all too well. I'm a former marathon runner. So yeah, I love the zone. Miss it terribly.
Yeah.
You get that. Yeah. It's that just going on forever and just being completely euphoric in a very wonderful way. Not in, you're in control, right?
So this is what we talk about with the growth piece, is that what if, and it's not to say that you can't grow doing something that's uncomfortable for you. You absolutely can. But what if we actually started to put some attention on that zone so that we could find it more often? We could slip into it when we wanted to. We could be more intentional about it. We could allow it to be the thing that is the driving force for our success.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That would be really nice. Yeah.
To me, that's the comfort, right? We've
Yeah.
been sold this idea that being comfortable is bad. When people say you have to go outside of your comfort zone to grow, it's when did comfort turn out to equal the same thing as being lazy, stagnant, boring, lethargic? Like it seems
Mhm.
right. And I always say the pandemic, if anything, taught us to challenge that. Right? When people say, "Oh, I'm just going to be comfortable. I'll sit on my couch all day and watch Netflix." And then the pandemic comes and shuts us down and we can't do anything but that. And I want
Yep.
to ask everybody, how comfortable was that after 2 years of pandemic?
Yep.
Not so
Yep. Not so
comfortable.
much. Yeah.
Not so much.
Yeah, and so oh my God, I have quite a few questions, so I have to like organize myself to make sure. So before we go into that conversation, let me go back to, and this might be, a question that no one else has but me, but are the archetypes, is that a universal archetype, or is that an archetype that you developed with your partner?
No, so the archetypes, so the soul language archetypes has come down from years and years of teachings, and
Mm,
the founder of the tool created the tool in a way to assess it, so
okay.
that we weren't guessing. Right? You can read the material and sort of guess. I think priest, artist, warrior, helper. There's 7 different archetypes. The founder, my business partner, was created a tool with which to create a report that gave you quicker access
Mm,
to it,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so this is why I always say the tool is very powerful. And yet when I work with people, we get their report, but then it's all about feeling into the truth of it and activating the truth of it. And usually people go, "Oh, this is so me." That's usually what happens.
Mhm,
But we're working with the energy because
mhm.
um, yeah, we want to work with the energy, so people go, "Oh, okay, I get that," or, "Oh, that's a little bit more awareness. I didn't realize I do that, but when I think about certain circumstances, I can see that's exactly what was happening." Like, my dominant energy is king energy, and when I'm in, the negative part of my energy, I can come out really argumentative.
Mhm, mhm.
But that's authentic, right? And so people say,
Yep,
"Be authentic." Well, it's kind of authentic for me to be argumentative when I'm coming from a stressed, overwhelmed, fearful place.
yeah,
But if I'm not, if I'm in a really good, center, grounded, loving, intentional place, that same energy comes across as really dynamic.
mhm, mhm.
It's like I can have all sorts of different solutions for different things, and I can pivot, and I can all of those things.
Yeah, yeah, interesting.
But it's
'Cause
the same energy.
yeah,
Mhm.
because I did something, it must have been the same thing then. I did an archetype or archetype?
Archetype, yeah.
Archetype, assessment just recently with, an art teacher, actually, and, I was wondering whether it would be the same thing,
So
but yeah.
yeah, so a lot of people will be used to different types of programs that give them different
Mhm,
archetypes for different reasons.
okay.
Back in business, Myers-Briggs is a personality test. The
Yep.
DISC, people have done the DISC analysis. It's a
Mhm.
it's a quadrant of most of those are based on behaviors.
Yep.
Um, some people will have done some that are a little bit more based on energy, like a human design or an Enneagram. There's many, many different archetype programs in sort of done in that way. A lot of
Okay.
different businesses might even create archetypes because they start to see different categories of people that show up for them, for example,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And other people might use a simple one that we've all heard of as I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert.
Yep.
And those are all sort of action and behavior based. So soul
Okay.
language
Yep.
is really core energy based.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
usually you can layer other things on top of it. So for example, if someone says I'm a D in disc,
Mhm.
how that is expressed from someone who is the archetype from soul language is a king would look very different than someone who was an archetype of a helper. And they could both show up as a D, but
Okay, got it.
they would look very different, if that makes
Yep.
how right.
Makes
So
some sense. Yeah. Yeah.
often when I see people have different archetypes, and there should be some similarities for sure,
Mhm.
and even with astrology at some point, like
Mhm.
my belief in this radical self-awareness is that tools that teach you more about yourself can all be beneficial
Yeah.
when you don't give the power to the tool.
Yeah.
And it used to be, I'll give you how I used to approach this. I was fascinated by stuff like this when I was younger,
Mhm.
and how it would show up, especially with horoscopes and stuff, is if I liked what it said, I believed it.
Yes. Yep.
If I didn't like what it said, I threw it away. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit empowering because I'm choosing.
Yeah.
But as I've gone further into recognizing the value of understanding myself better and how
Mm-hmm.
that impacts my life and my business,
Mm-hmm.
now it's looking at something and going, even if I don't like it,
Mm-hmm.
can I discern whether or not this is a real truth for me? Can I
Mm-hmm.
feel this in my body?
Yeah.
Like and that's why I say when I get clients and we'll be talking about something and we might be discerning something for them because like, I don't know if this is me. And we start to play with it a little bit and understand it in different perspectives. And then they go,
Yeah.
oh, that is me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but see, that's them saying it. It's not me going, well, sorry, the report says you have a lot of
You are blah,
stellar.
blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah.
I never do that with people because I really believe that the whole point of it is that radical awareness.
Yeah.
Because you're the one that has to live your life and make choices from it. And so you get to feel it. But often society, rules, and experiences have layered the veil on top of it, things for us. So it's like when I was 12, I was told by a teacher I wasn't creative.
Mm-hmm.
I was really good in math and science. And so I wore this label for years.
Yeah.
I'm not creative. I used to say to people, I'm not creative. I'm not creative.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I would be doing things as an adult and I kept getting feedback from all these different places in my life. You're so creative. And I was like, wait a second. All of a sudden I realized I was wearing a label someone else gave me.
Yeah.
And I was looking through the lens of creativity from a very narrow perspective.
Yeah.
Like creative to me when I was younger was you knew how to do crafts, you could paint, you could sculpt. I mean, creative was really
The stuff that you do in school in art classes.
very
Yeah.
literal, right?
Yeah.
I do have some artist energy in my soul language profile, which kind of makes sense. But even before then, I started to listen to my life and go, oh, when I see a problem, I am really creative in the way I approach solving it. And
Yeah.
that is also creativity.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so that's what I'm talking about when I say peeling back the layers of awareness.
Yeah.
We can know something about ourselves, and then are we still peeling the layers back as we get older and wiser and we start to go,
Yeah. It's so interesting. So how does that look like? I mean, are you working with people one on one? How do you take people into your ecosystem and what happens?
Yeah. And then I want to connect it to your work too, because I think it's really kind of cool. That's why I really loved having that conversation with you when we met as well.
Yeah.
So I do work with people one-on-one that want to go really deep into their soul language.
Okay.
Always for a reason.
Mhm.
But my skill set is in business and even more so in sales, although we do marketing and all those pieces. So I work individually with one-on-one with their soul language and with their question, if you will. I also have a hybrid program with a group. It's a very small group, but I call it hybrid. It's an experience because we have to do individual work as well as the group training. Because I don't like to just work in general concepts. I love to be able to say, okay, Nina, you've got that, let's say, for example, that artist energy in this aspect, but you've got this warrior energy over here. And so for you, when we're talking about this, it looks like this for you, probably feels like this for you, right? So when I'm working with a group, we go right to the soul language instead of just talking generalities.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I want to link it to your work if that's cool, because
yeah. And just one second, there was a question that I want to get to before we get to that,
sure,
which is by Sherry James. She wants to know, I wonder how the archetypes align or correspond with those mentioned in the Celestine Prophecy. She says, I love this topic.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar with the book?
I read that book about 30 years ago.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I did too.
But you know what? I like this question though, because there's a great example of how my mind years ago and my own knowledge of myself was very pragmatic. I like things that had answers. That's why I love math. 1 + 1 is 2 kind of thing. Now I think 1 + 1 can be 11. It's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I read the Celestine Prophecy, I just love this idea of, I didn't understand it fully. To me, it was just sort of mystical and woo at the time about people's energies.
Energy, yeah.
I don't remember the archetypes described in that book, so I can't speak to that. But I will speak to the fact that we can feel each other's energy whether you dive deep into it or not, this idea of people's energy, talk about in Celestine Prophecy, for my memory of it, my remembrance of it, is that our energy fields kind of when you run into somebody, like your energy fields kind of like intersect. And that's why sometimes you can feel, you walk into, I just didn't like that guy's energy. I don't even know why. I just don't.
Yeah. It just doesn't.
Or you walk into a room and it feels like it's so heavy, you could cut the tension with a knife. Like that's us feeling energy, right? Whether we, believe in it or not. And so I love this idea of it. And I would say, that's where understanding your own soul language and starting to understand what some of the other ones are, is that you can really appreciate that when you start to really understand, when we understand more radically who we are and who we're not, then we can really make room for who other people are. So, and I can say, my dominant energy, there's dominant wing and collaborative energies, but my dominant energy is that of the king. It's leading. When I lean into it and I can recognize I don't have to do all the other roles. Like it's not better than anybody else. I'm really good at leading, but I actually don't have to have all the answers. I'm not the scholar with all the knowledge.
Yeah.
So, but I can lead without having all the knowledge. But if we need knowledge, I got to go get some scholars and get them in the room. So it makes space for people, and we can say, right. So, that doesn't really answer her question, but I love this idea of just even recognizing that we have different energies, and people will feel it. People feel when we're in a good place. They feel when we're in scarcity.
Yeah, definitely. Scarcity versus abundance mindset. That's a huge thing too. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to stop you. I mean, I did stop you, but I am very curious to see how you're bringing that back to, I guess, video marketing.
Yes. Well, I was thinking of this the other day when I was thinking about our conversation for today, because I was thinking of myself even when I was starting to do video years ago, and I was really not comfortable on video at all. And I needed you. I need you still, but I needed you then for sure. And at the time I gave myself a little challenge to be on video for 30 days in a row. It was in April, every day for 30 days, just get on video. And it took me those 30 days to really start to get comfortable. It's very vulnerable. I think being on video is vulnerable, just like being in a sales conversation can be vulnerable. And there's this idea of like, how much do I show of myself? Am I comfortable showing who I am? And my understanding is you're really good at helping people with that and with actually showing who they are, right? Okay, so here's the blend of the two things, is that my work is helping people really understand that even more and get to a real solid, grounded, comfortable place with it. So when I think about initially when I was on video, I was just like not really wanting to be on video. There was a vulnerability. Eventually, when I got past that, I was showing up as who I was. But back then, if I had to compare with who I am now, I'm so much more grounded in my belief, my knowledge, my understanding, and my awareness of who I am. That when I show up on video now, it's not just because I've done it several times, but who I am. And I would imagine for you as a video production person, what you can do with an individual who's really solid in who they are, even if they don't know how to show it on video, because that's your expertise.
Yeah, but that's the easy part, really.
Right. Then it becomes easier, right? Now you work with someone else who's not only a little bit scared of video, but also isn't fully, grounded in kind of who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, it shows up very often, like in the beginning with people when I start working with them. I always say, like, right now we're sort of in panic mode, and everything that happens here, right? It's around your head. It's lightheaded. There's no gravitas to it. There's no centeredness to it. And then in a sort of a phase 2, I feel people are starting to, bring their heart into it and starting to bring their passion into it. And then when you really start mastering video, and not just video, just being present for your company and yourself and the people that you're looking to help, then it comes from within, and then it comes from
Yeah.
your gut, and it comes from
Yeah.
your
Soul. I would
um,
say
yeah,
soul. That's when you really, you're
yeah.
soul driven, right?
And I've worked with this woman, Dana Froriep, and she says it comes from your sexual energy,
Mm,
or from your root chakra. So,
mm,
and once you get there, um, there's an attraction and an energy that comes from you that is just absolutely magic,
yeah.
and that's
And
when you really bring people in.
right. And for me, I'll see what I can see when people are in that place a little bit more is all the archetypes energies will show up differently in that place.
Hmm.
So again, like even for video, right? This is the connection too for you is you're not trying to have everyone show up excited and energetic and smiley and bubbly if that's not who
Yeah.
they are, right?
No, no, no,
It doesn't
no.
make any
Yeah,
sense, right?
yeah, yeah,
So again, my belief is that the deeper we understand who we are, the more we can show up as it, and more willing we are to show up as it. And then we bring in someone like you that helps us actually put that into a video,
yeah.
right? So that's why they work really well, I think, together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the work when I work with my clients, we're not talking about archetypes, but we're talking about how, showing up, how you show up when you are working with your clients as the
Mhm,
expert on a Zoom call. You want to make sure there's no disconnect between that
mhm.
and what you're showing in the video, right?
Yeah.
It needs to have the same energy. Otherwise, you're just freaking people out.
Yeah. Well, so you can say that same thing for sales.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. See, it's
Okay.
like, you
Yeah,
got it, right? In a second, you
yeah,
got it. I
yeah,
love doing that with people. And that's why I often use their own and examples of where they feel comfortable. Where's your
yeah,
comfort zone of that? Guess what?
yeah,
Over there. And you go, oh, I got it.
yeah.
Wait a second. I can do that? Yeah.
I can do that. Yeah, yeah. Cool. I love that. Awesome. This is
Right.
this is the perfect place to stop.
It's
Wow.
so fun for
Yeah,
me because when people get it, it's that fast. Like I didn't even finish saying the sentence. You're like, got it. It's like,
yeah, yeah, that was like boom. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Wow. Okay, thank you.
so if you want to ask what I really do and what I really enjoy doing, it's finding those moments for people, helping
Yeah.
those people find those moments for themselves. Actually, it's not me finding it. You did it, not me.
Yeah, no, but I mean, with obviously with your expert help, absolutely. No, and I mean, and that's what we all live for. No matter what it is that we teach or we coach or we enable or we support people in doing, it's those whoa or
Mm,
aha or whatever moments that our clients get,
mhm.
and that makes it worth it for them and for us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it.
Love
What
it.
a fun conversation with you today.
I know. I'm just sitting in it right now. I'm really loving it. I want to stop now and just like, revel in my newfound, uh, yeah, sort of the zone. Thank you.
You're
This was
welcome.
awesome. This is really awesome. So Lisa, if people want to have the experience I just had and more, how do you like to have people connect with you?
They can reach out directly. You can DM me on LinkedIn if you like. It's Lisa Dad with, I was gonna say two D's. It's really three, DADD.
Mhm.
You can go to my website. There's a contact form on the website as well. It's just
Mhm.
lisadad.com. Yeah, I'd like to have live conversations with people. I
Yep.
just reiterate what I said to you. I don't sell people into the soul sales and soul language. There's got to be a desire for a change and a feeling like it could be right. And then we have a
Mhm.
conversation. It's not a
Mhm.
conversation of whether it makes sense for you.
Yep.
If you're just looking for me to give you a sticker of like, you're a sage, I don't do that. I
You don't
think
have
it's
you don't
useless.
have to hire
It's,
you for that.
it's archetypes are powerful and useless depending on how you approach them. So there's the transparency for you. I think if
Yeah.
you just want to know that it's useless.
That's
I'm all
awesome.
about integrating it into your work. So anybody has a desire for that, let's have a
Mhm.
conversation about it. I always love to do that.
Cool, very cool. And I think Bryn has worked her magic in the background and has put relevant links into the chat. So you all should be seeing Lisa's LinkedIn profile and her website. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you on so many different levels for the conversation. And this was really just really enlightening and interesting and fascinating. And I had a great time. I hope everybody who is watching it or will be watching it will have had a great time as well. And please reach out to Lisa if you think that soul sales is something that you're interested in. And we will be back with another edition of Live Real Talk with Nina in, I don't even know when, but in the near future for sure. And thank you so much for being with us and listening. And if you're watching the replay, just throw in the hashtag replay so we know that you watched it later. Anyway, thank you all and stay safe. And I hope the only thing negative in your life are your test results from COVID tests, and everything else be a positive experience. Take care, everybody. And thank you, Lisa.
Bye. You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.